I'll have a fifth. With Coke? No. With Mike Canan? Yes. With Mr. Satin? You bet. Welcome to the Fifth Mascot. It is the definitive web show on the Cincinnati Reds, and it exists only on WCPO.com. With the aforementioned crew, I'm Ken Broo. Let's get to it. One step forward, three steps back. They play the Cubs in Chicago. Lorenzen loses. Cueto, Leak, Desclafani. Mike, they were all over the map there in Chicago. All over the proverbial map.
Yeah, they definitely had some ups and downs there in that series. I mean, they almost lost the game. They actually won with Cueto on the mound. I mean, they kind of blew that one, and it just took a... They finally got a timely hit from Suarez to win that one in I think the 10th.
Eugenio Suarez. Let me hear you say that three times fast, Satin.
Suarez.
No, not Suarez.
I don't think that's what he meant.
Suarez. He was the highlight. I mean, he looked great.
He looked wonderful.
New blood up there.
Yeah, he looks
totally. Good. Yeah, I like it. I like the swing. I like the hustle. More of that.
I'm wondering if
had a great bunt last night.
Hey, that's true.
I'm wondering if down the road they can have him play second. Hang on to Cozart. That's not a bad double play combination because they got to find somebody in the after Phillips.
Is this 2018 talking about here?
Yes, probably so, Mr. Satin. Yes, 2018, unfortunately.
I don't know what they do in the 2 years between now and then where they can't unload Brandon's contract, and they've got Suarez and Cozart.
But the Reds go 6 of 38 with runners in scoring position for a $158 up in Chicago. 6 of 38. I may be on safe ground here. I think I could go 6 for 38 with runners in scoring position. I think I can do it. I think I could.
You lean into the pitch a couple times.
A couple there, a couple of bunts.
Yeah.
Maybe a walk.
Yeah.
I could do that. I could do that.
Lean into one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How can he go 6 for 38 with? Well, if you're
depressing.
not, you're tempted to say if you're a bad hitting ball club, chances are you hit poorly with runners in scoring position. But some of these guys hit well on average.
Yeah.
Phillips hits well on average. Votto hits well on average. Pena hits well on average. But it seems like they defy logic when it comes to runners in scoring position.
Well, and the sad thing is, I don't think that's the worst batting average with runners in scoring position we've seen after a series. I think that's actually middle of the road.
Or we'll see.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're saying we're building on that? That's like we're getting better?
Yeah, it's getting better. It's progress.
Baby steps.
Hey,
Gotta
look on the bright side.
Where'd you get the hat?
Oh, yeah. You like these? These are the new All-Star editions right there. Buddy,
That has got to be the thickest applique I've seen on
yeah,
it.
we got like some silk screen going on. We got a little
Silk
gold stitching, little felt. Yeah.
It looks like there's a giant bruise here, and it's just come up. But that's sweet. You brought some for everyone, I'm sure.
Well, we've got them down for sale at Mike at 12V, 12th and Vine right now.
Good.
And I'll bring you guys in some for sure. You guys need that. We need more swag. Yeah.
So then the Tigers pop up. Mascot gets injured in game 1. How can you, first of all, why is a pitcher involved in a rundown in the first place? How did that happen, Mike?
I have absolutely no idea, and it just kind of boggles the mind. The pitcher is the guy that you want to just clear out of the play and be nowhere near it unless there is an absolute emergency. And here he is in the middle of a rundown play when you've got 4 other guys who are close enough to jump into that play.
Right. Here's the thing, and that's it. It's like if you're the pitcher and you have to make a throw, you make the throw and get out of the way. If you have to make the catch, you make the catch, throw it, and get out of the way.
Absolutely.
And so here's a dude, he dislocates his non-pitching shoulder. Everybody says, well, that's not all that bad. Well, yes, it is, because there's a whole motion above the waist. He looks like he's not a happy camper there.
No.
He's lost it there. I don't know who teaches you this. I remember going through Pee-wee, but I never have I ever seen someone just like run at them and just dive at them. It's like, you have other players with you. It's called a team, right? You don't have to do everything.
And look at that shot. He could have been ruptured. Look at that. It was like he had like the V going up in the air.
Yeah, Strat said he looked like a scorpion.
Look at that.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, that just is not pretty.
No.
They say he's out 15 days, but they told Noah it would only rain for overnight. So I think he'll be out for a while.
Well, and Mesoraco is day-to-day for
That's exactly
6
right.
weeks.
Yeah.
They could give him Mesoraco's shoulder and give Mesoraco his nerve. They'd be in good shape.
Perfect.
Bionic man.
Can he squat? That's
I went online and I watched the replay of that on my phone on the MLB app, which is very useful.
Okay.
But they have the announcers from the Reds. Tommy and Creeper, and he dives in and he tags him, and Tommy goes, "That's a great play by Mascot." And then there's this pause, and Welsh goes, "Well, He got his man. That's all he could do. He's like, no, if you're a pitcher, you throw the ball to the first infielder you see and you get out of the way. But he didn't follow that.
Mike and Brian on either side of Matt Lucan there are a trusty band of cohorts.
Yeah.
Brian's got the playoff beard going. He won't shave it until the Reds make the playoffs, so that'll be down to his navel.
He looks like ZZ Top over here.
ZZ Top,
Nice.
oh yeah.
Or the
Billy
Cyclones
Gibbons.
win the Kelly Cup.
Hey,
again.
at least it wasn't his throwing shoulder, right?
It could be worse.
Could be
The Reds'
worse,
luck is
yeah.
gone. But I mean,
Yeah.
you're going to be looking at now. This is, I think, when they bring up someone to take Mascot's place. I think that's their 9th starting pitcher.
Yeah.
You look back to the years they were really successful, especially 2012, when they went the entire season with their same original starting 5 in their rotation, and we're already on 9, and we're not even halfway through the year. We're going to be on, very likely, our 5th rookie starting pitcher over the course of the year.
And you know who it should be? Robert Stevenson. He made the All-Star team in Double-A, okay? He struggled for the first 2 months in Double-A. Bring him up here. Let's see what he can do. What's the difference at this point?
I think that may rush him a little bit, and
Sure.
he had one start where he walked one of his recent starts where he walked 6 guys.
Well, hell, we got guys on the roster that can do that.
Yeah, we've got the walks covered.
Bring them up. I honestly, I understand rushing, and that's what they did with Homer Bailey. But for goodness sakes, I mean, it's like, who else? You're going to bring up some nondescript guy from AAA that you get lost in a phone booth.
Well, they've got Holmberg, who they got in the Hannigan trade, and they've got Dylan Axelrod, who was up last year and actually pitched pretty well. Both those guys have ERAs in the mid-4s at AAA. They could be decent. You know, it does say a lot about the depth and how quickly those other guys came up and moved along. That last year, Axelrod and Holmberg were the first guys they turned to, and now they're your 5th and 6th guys that you might turn to for the rotation. So that is a positive, but I think it's going to probably be one of those 2 guys.
We ought to mention Lorenzen wins that second game up in Detroit and pitches very well, just 1 earned run, and then Cueto wins on Wednesday night. He goes and out into the 6th. So really and truly,
is it not scary watching Cabrera hit though?
oh, he's
I mean, it's like a man amongst boys.
It really
he
is.
took it, and it's just a matter of time. You can tell with every at bat that if he doesn't get on, the pitcher got lucky.
And then they walked him intentionally, right, on the first game, and then they got burned after that. So it's they're a good team. I don't, regardless of how the series goes out, they're a good team.
Cabrera reminds me of watching Bonds when Bonds was in his prime. When every time he stepped in the batter's box, you were like, he's going to hurt you some way. If you get him out, you are getting lucky.
It was pretty awesome last night, though, when he got hit in the face with a ball. That was exciting.
You like that?
Oh, I did. I was like, all right, some way, let's get at this guy. Maybe maybe we can rattle his cage a little bit.
Maybe just start hitting guys in the face with balls.
It happened.
I'm just saying. Maybe that's the pathway to success for the Reds.
Yeah,
that comes up later in this week in Reds history.
Yeah.
But we'll get back to that.
Always lead with the elbow,
it does,
right?
Yes.
Okay. Can we ask the principal if it's okay to talk about Todd Frazier now? Because he told us we can't talk about Todd Frazier until a certain point. Is it all right?
Yes, we've
Thank
gone
you,
far
Doctor.
enough. Thank you for holding. That's right.
That's what I'm doing here. I'm following the script.
Thank you for waiting.
I take direction well. Last 10 games, 395, 6 home runs, 11 RBI. He's making a case for selection to the All-Star game, but more important, and I've fielded phone calls from people on the radio, on WLW, about, well, maybe one of the guys they should trade is Todd Frazier. He's young, he's inexpected, and he's inexpensive, and he's hitting the ball well. I said, you've just given me compelling reasons to keep Todd Frazier. Yeah. Why would you want to trade this guy? He's the only thing you got, really. 395 over the last 10 games, but on balance this season, I think he's had a very good year. I mean, you could make a case right now where that guy could hit 50 home runs this year.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the numbers a little bit, he's actually 3rd in the National League in wins above replacement. The only 2 guys who have better numbers than him, Bryce Harper, who is like out of this world, and Paul Goldschmidt, who is like also on that same level. I mean, those 2 guys have just been unbelievable, and Frazier's 3rd. I mean, I think we can talk all we want about the Royals and the situation with the All-Star voting on the American League side, but I think it's an absolute travesty that on the National League side that he's 3rd in the voting. I mean, it's ridiculous. If you look at the numbers, he's got much better numbers than Carpenter and Bryant. If you look at he is 1.6 wins above replacement above Carpenter, and I think he's a full win above replacement above Bryant. That doesn't sound like a whole lot. That's a lot. That's a huge difference. I mean, you're talking about his WAR is something like 3.6. So you're talking about very small numbers. To have that big of a gap and to be that far behind in the All-Star voting is just ridiculous.
Well, and you got to love his attitude. I mean, he's Mr. Cincinnati right now, holding this team together. You know, he's not too cocky, but he also holds his own. He says, I should be an All-Star. And you know, I love that attitude. And everyone, I think, in Cincinnati's got to rally behind this guy.
I think he'll get selected. He'll get selected.
Yeah.
Don't you think he'll get selected?
If he's not on the team,
right, I'm not going to the game.
There's some major problem.
Right.
Regardless
Burn down the ballpark.
Like, I mean, even if it wasn't in Cincinnati, if he wasn't on the team, it would be an absolute injustice. Yep. But with it being in Cincinnati, I gotta think there's. I mean, he's the spokesperson for the All-Star game.
Right.
So they'd put him on if he was hitting 250.
Yeah.
But,
well, he's got to be captain of the home run. I mean,
and I think he's in the home run derby, isn't he?
Yeah, they got to put him there too.
He looks,
Who goes? But I mean, it's probably not a bad time to talk. I think he goes. I think Chapman will go. I think they'll select Chapman.
Yeah.
I think anybody else makes it.
Man, I kind of feel like Chapman's not. I don't know.
I don't know if Chapman deserves to go, but I think he will go. He'll go on name and on the pop and the buzz.
And that's how the All-Star game is. We were talking about that before. You know, Barry Larkin didn't get selected for years because Ozzie Smith, and Johnny Bench got selected for years when he was past his prime just because he was Johnny Bench. As long as he's played catcher, he was going to get in, no matter who you were.
Yeah, and
that just kind of goes on forever.
That raises the point, though, Matt. Should fans be voting on this thing? I mean, I get it.
Now you're talking about the commissioner's office, and that's a whole.
Well, you afraid you're going to get fired?
No, I'm just saying the decisions they make. Who the heck knows? The fact that the World Series home field is decided in this game is ridiculous.
That's the most ridiculous thing of all.
It's decided by a fan vote.
Right.
No, but that's it. I mean, literally,
that's true.
Literally, the American League could lose home field advantage in the World Series because there are a bunch of people sitting in their computers out in Kansas City going like this.
Yeah.
That's what this. And that's why I say, should the fans have the vote, or should it be a vote among managers and players?
Well, here's a funny one. What if it ended up costing Kansas City the World Series because their fans stack the All-Star team with Kansas City Royals and they lose home field advantage and then they end up losing in the World Series because of that?
Funny.
I mean, it could hurt them.
I like the fact that, us fans can vote. I just don't think 35 times a day that's ridiculous. I mean, where'd that number come from?
I know. That was good. Yeah, we're not going to let you do too much, but 35 is all right.
35. Not 36. 36 is too many.
Yeah.
Well, you remember how it all left. It left the fans' hands in 57 after that debacle with the Cincinnati Post, and then a woman that had a talk show in this town, and then
wasn't there a bar in town that handed them out every night?
And the newspapers too.
Yeah.
They had like a ballot inside the newspaper.
That was my favorite part. Was there was a bar that you had before they would give you a beer, you had to fill out an All-Star game ballot.
I love that. Let's do that again.
Yeah. Maybe we can do it in reverse. You fill out the All-Star game ballot, and we'll then you get the beer.
Right. Yeah, because we want you to do it sober.
But I mean, Ruth Lyons on her show was like urging people to keep voting, which is her right to do. But it's like at a certain point it becomes ridiculous. And you could vote back then with on napkins and anything. Just put them in an envelope and send them. So I don't know if it's a good idea. I think maybe one vote per IP address. I could take that, but 35 votes. Yeah. That's it's an arbitrary number, and it really and truly violates, I think, what the All-Star game is supposed to be about.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, or if there was some way to have it. They started with a selected list until it was whittled down. There was the top 5 at each position that you could vote on, so you can't go. I mean, even in the National League side, Nori Aoki, because he was with the Royals last year, has gotten this huge. I think he's 3rd or 4th among outfielders. Right. I mean, the he's not even close to an All-Star caliber.
He's great
player.
to play though. He gets on.
Oh yeah, he does. But
it's fun to watch.
Is he an All-Star? I wish the Reds had him on the team.
What
I take him over Marlon Byrd.
There were a lot of people in Kansas City with a lot of time on their hands.
That's true.
I think it's that, and I think there also probably are some computer program infiltrations to try to figure that out.
Well, speaking of that,
good segue into cheating.
The St. Louis Cardinals, which of course is the bell cow for all baseball franchises, is being investigated by the FBI for hacking into the Houston Astros computer database to learn about team information. Now, Jeff Linnell, The Astros GM and former Cardinal front office employee was the target of some former disgruntled employees who used old passwords to hack into the Astros digital records and player information. The federal government is investigating this. A couple of things here. Lunau is an idiot for not changing his password. Let's get that out of the way. And two, if you said that the Cardinals were hacking into the Astros computer database a year ago, you would have been like, what?
Yeah.
So those are the two things I wanted to point out.
The thing is, I think they weren't necessarily hacking in to like get good intel. I think they were trying to discredit and trying to prove that Lunau stole stuff from the Cardinals. Like they were trying to make him look bad, more than they were probably trying to like get good intel from the Astros.
Well, in 1984, the Congress passed the CFAA, which is the Computer Fraud Act, and
wow.
You can first of all, a one-time offender gets 5 years. Or could get 5 years and up to, I don't know, I think it's $10,000 or $15,000 in a penalty. And that's per event. In other words, if Ralph in St. Louis in the front office there went in there and went in there 5 or 6 times, that's 5 or 6 offenses. Wow. So you would then multiply the amount of time that he would do jail time and the amount of money. But a lawyer explained this to me today. He said the mere fact that the federal government is involved leads him to believe that there's something there and that there will be penalties. Now, Mazziliak, the general manager, said, hey, I had nothing to do with it, which was smart on his part, because if he was complicit, then the entire organization is involved, in which case then that Bill DeWitt and his boys are in big troubles. But the feds don't get involved in something like this unless they believe that there is due reason to be involved. And I think you're going to see some penalties.
Someone will pay.
Yeah, I saw him talking about it on ESPN, and there was debate among baseball people as to what they could do. Some people thought they could lose draft choices, and other people thought that was something that was negotiated in a contract and it can't be messed with. And then other people said the commissioner's office has all kinds of leeway. Well, but this is going into a new area that nobody's ever really.
If Bill DeWitt and John Mazziliak knew about it, they don't have to worry about draft picks. They go to prison. I mean, it's the same way. It's like,
which wouldn't bother me at all. But I wouldn't mind if they lost draft picks.
Well, no, that too. But I'm just saying that there's not going to be. There won't be a civil trial because you're getting damages from Ralph, who's probably making $13,000 a year. You're not going to get anything from him.
Yeah, they all lived in the same place. Did you hear that? The IP, several times it happened from the several IP addresses in the same house where a bunch of guys lived.
or from the Cardinals complex.
That's crazy.
No, it was all from one place.
But I do think if they're charged, criminally in this thing, that you will get people going to prison. My guess is that it doesn't go very high, but that's just a guess. It's going to be like Deflategate or something like that. It's going to get lopped off at a certain level.
Yeah, that's a lot to pay for, stealing some Minecraft passwords or something, you know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing that's crazy, though, is like, what is baseball going to do about that? I mean, where do they go? I mean, I don't think there's any kind of precedent for an organization being at the root of the problem versus individuals. And you could say it's individuals, but if the organization benefited it, or like if you said, if Mazziliak or DeWitt were involved in some way, or even just knew about it, I mean, there could be punishment coming down from MLB.
And there have been cases since '84 where this has happened, and people have gone to prison. I mean, it's not like this is the first time it's ever popped up. It was really and truly initiated to protect the banking industry, from what I'm told. So a bank couldn't get its information hacked, and therefore jeopardize the finances of its customers.
What kind of prison are we talking about here, though? Are we talking about like vacation prison with, some Mai Tais and things like that? Are we talking about some, pound me prison stuff? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
we're talking about they have to go pitch in the Reds bullpen and just get whiplash from watching the ball after ball fly over the fence.
Sounds like you've got a lot of information on prisons there, Mr.
Yeah, I really followed Martha Stewart's case, and sounds like she had a pretty good time in there. So it's not all bad.
Speaking of 1984, this day in Reds history in 1984, Mario Soto suspended. Second suspension of the season, the result of a Cincinnati starter firing a fastball at a group of opposing players, striking Braves coach Joe Pignatano after he punched Cordell Washington, who was being restrained by umpire Lanny Harris as he charged the mound. Okay, the Reds' fiery right-hander will be suspended for 3 games due to this incident, with Washington, who had been the target of his brushback pitches, getting 5 games off for pushing the home plate up.
It was great. I went and watched this on YouTube, and Washington, the first at bat in the game, hit a home run. Next time up, he got some chin music, big time. The third time up, he comes up, and on the first pitch that's anywhere close to the plate, he throws his bat into the infield. And so he acts like he's going to go get it. And he starts walking out into the infield, and he's sort of meandering over toward the mound. And then finally people started to realize, and Mario knew what was going on. The umpire ran out and tried to catch him. And he starts coming over, they start jawing. And then right as it started to get good and players started to gather around, Mario steps back and throws his ball right at him. They're about 5 feet from each other, and he missed Washington and hit the first base coach for the Braves, who was trying to tackle Washington. Wow. It was great, but Mario was a great pitcher on a lot of bad teams. Oh my gosh, yes. On a lot of bad teams.
Oh yeah, 3-time All-Star. But over and above, you just said it, Matt. There were some bad ball clubs in this town back in the late 70s and early 80s.
Yes.
And my goodness, he was literally the only thing they had. I mean, who was on that team? Dave Van Gorder and Brad Goulden.
Eddie Milner, I
think. Eddie was a good player.
Yeah. Yeah. Gary Reedus.
Gary Reedus was
okay.
Okay, yeah. He wasn't as good as Gary thought he was. But there were just some horrible players on these teams, but he was the best. And it makes you wonder what he would have done in that time frame with a decent ball club.
I looked at he had in 1983 he had 18 complete games and he won 17 games.
Wow.
Wow. That was they would leave you out there for a while, especially when your team wasn't any good and you didn't have anybody to bring in.
Who was the manager then?
Nixon, maybe?
Russ Nixon?
At least he was in the early 80s. For some of that time, it would have been Russ Nixon, I think.
His brother is still a security guy down at the stadium.
Who was the guy right before Pete? Was it Nixon?
Oh, it was John Oh, no.
McNamara was late 70s.
I think Pete replaced Nixon.
Yeah, that's right. So Nixon would have been, in this part of this was Pete. Pete came in 84.
Right. Ford replaced Nixon, Pete replaced Nixon. I think that's how I remember.
Was that player-manager times?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Nice. Yeah. Pete, remember Pete?
I remember Pete. Yeah, he was very good.
When he got in trouble, they said that he would bet. One of the things they said, you would get in trouble. The reason you're not allowed to gamble is because you would start to throw games. But Pete never bet against the Reds. He bet for the Reds, except for when Mario Soto was pitching. That was in the Dowd report, that he wouldn't bet on the Reds when Mario Soto was pitching. Not because he wasn't any good, it's because he never had any run support and he didn't get good luck in the game.
Wow. That's funny.
I don't know if we really wanted to know that one. I got like one little tear coming down for that one now.
You weren't even alive when Pete Rose was with the Big Reds.
Hey, I was. No, that's true. Well,
you can't even remember the Dowd report.
I was in it. Hey, we hit the casino a couple of times, Pete and I. We had a good time.
So the standings here, Mike, for
then it was River Downs. That's where Pete was seen a lot.
River Downs, right?
Didn't he hit a pick six? And he didn't pay tax on it, and that was the start of everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he had a friend go cash the ticket.
Right.
And he didn't pay the tax. Right. Yeah.
Tax evasion. That's how they get everyone.
Hey,
it's rough.
That's how they got Satin.
It's true. It's true.
The FBI's still working on that portfolio.
That's going to be how they
the word is out
after these guys in the Cardinals front office. They're going to link it back to their tax evasion.
Yeah.
National League Central, the Reds are ripping it up. 13 games out of first place as we speak. I think last week they were 12 and a half, 12. So they're fading in the National League Central. And the Cardinals with their computers continue to, they lose everybody. They get investigated by the Justice Department, and they just keep winning.
And you look at who was their giant big acquisition, and it was Jason Hayward. And what has he done? He's done nothing. I was looking at the numbers for Holiday. He's got like 3 home runs.
He's out now, isn't he hurt?
I think he's hurt too. Yeah. If you told me the Cardinals would get basically 0 production from Holiday and Hayward, and Adams would be hurt, and Wainwright would be hurt, and they would be 43 and 22, I'd have said you're crazy.
How about the Pirates? 11 games over 500, and they're in second place.
On fire.
5 back.
Yeah.
Put them in the Put them in the American League East.
Put them in any other division, they'd be first place.
And then in the wild card race, the Reds, who I believe were 4.5 the last time we spoke, are now 6 back. But you know what? It's early. No, it's not. It's late. They're 6 back of the second wild card spot, which is not good.
With 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams ahead of them just to get to the second wild card spot. And a Cubs team that they have not been able to beat all year. No. So you'd have to beat them head-to-head to catch up to them.
They're just a 15-game win streak away. That's all.
Yeah, I like the sound of that.
That is a great strategy. I think that's actually Brian Price's strategy right now. We're going to play, like they used to say, we're going to play for the 3-run homer. We're going to play for the 15-game win streak.
Right.
Talking about Todd Frazier, put him 1 through 8 hole again, right?
Yeah, just
and
bat
roll
him
the
over
dice.
and over again.
When does the overhaul begin, Mike? Do you think it begins
after the All-Star break?
Right.
Well, why is the man waiting? Why is Castellini waiting for that?
Well, I mean, there were rumors last week that the Nationals and Reds were talking Chapman. Yeah. So I mean, maybe they're not waiting. There were a ton of scouts apparently from the Giants at Leake's last start. I'm sure there were people scouting Cueto last night. They're probably a little cautious and want to see a couple more starts because of the elbow issue, and he hasn't pitched great since he came back. No. He's been solid. I mean, if there were anyone other than Johnny Cueto, you'd be like, oh, that was a good start, but it was Cueto. So
I think you don't wait for the market to be set. I think you set the market. I think in order, Chapman, Cueto, Leake, Pena, and if you could put Bruce in there with somebody and get something a little bit more, or maybe just deal it, but. The problem is so you make those deals, there's nobody that you can plug in there. I mean, you could put Pedro Villarreal, I guess, in the bullpen and have like Hoover close.
I don't think they're going to send that many guys. They just don't have that in them. I think they'll make a few deals, but they don't. That would be wholesale gutting, and I don't see them willing to do that.
I don't see that as wholesale gutting.
Either.
You get rid of 3 or 4 guys who I mean, 2 of which, Leake and Cueto, are not going to be with the team next year. I mean, so.
The big arm coming up, though, is Hand. Aloha Mr. Hand last night. That 65-mile-an-hour curveball. He's the second coming. Watch out for Hand. We're going to be talking about him next week.
Danny Herrera, reincarnated.
Yeah, oh yeah, Danny Herrera, his 82-mile-per-hour fastball.
But if you deal Cueto and Leake, you're not going to get anything. You're going to get prospects who could be suspects, and they may not be any kind of immediate help. The only guy you're going to trade that you're going to get immediate help with is Chapman. That's it. Chapman, because he's got the rest of this year and all of next year. Pena is an interesting piece. I don't know how much you're going to get for him. And Bruce, let's face it, he's a lost ball. And maybe someplace else he's better, but right here they don't know what to do with him, and he doesn't know what to do.
Did you guys hear that? Did you guys?
6 last
the Yankees. The Yankees said something about getting Bruce. They said they could fix him.
Right?
Is that like a slap in the face? To
really?
Them? Yeah.
Ooh.
They said something like, "We could take Bruce and we can
short
fix
porch,
him."
Short porch, and
yeah,
right.
we can. And that seemed like a slap in the face.
Who said that though? Because that's tampering. You can't say that without getting fined by the commissioner's office.
I don't know. I heard it from you.
Look on the card. Look on the card.
This thing's rolling down.
I actually did hear from him.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they would get maybe a little bit for Cueto and Leake. I think for Pena, they're going to get a guy who's like the equivalent of Dylan Axelrod, David Holmberg, a guy who's like going to maybe be a 5th starter or a AAA, that sort of 4A bounce back and forth.
That's what we got to keep
kind of thing, or a guy who's at the very low level of the minor leagues, who's like got a shot, but he's got a ways to go, kind of thing. The kind of guy that they traded like for Marlon Byrd, Ben Lively, that kind of guy.
So you might get a Brian Pena if you trade Brian Pena, or you might get a guy.
We got to keep Pena then.
That's just percolating.
See?
But I don't know. But again,
that's good thinking, Butch.
I mean, but here's the deal. I mean, when this team is going to be good again, and it's not going to be good again for a while. Brian Pena is not going to be part of this team. He's not.
I still think we invest in him. I'd love to see him as a coach someday. I like him here.
Well, yeah, I will bring him back as a coach when he's 40. But I mean, in 3 years, he's not going to be on this team. I think you got to start. I think you got to have a come to Jesus meeting down there. What you got to say
is, to Jesus?
Yes. When are you going to be good again? I mean, realistically, and all BS aside, they're not going to be any good till like 2018. So start building toward then.
You're planning for the next All-Star game here that we're going to be good.
Well, I'm not saying it's going to be that long. I'm just saying if you just realistically look at it, and you look at their minor league system, I just don't think they're going to be good for a while.
I think they can be good next year and can contend next year if they make some smart moves. And they've got to clear some salary, and they've got to come to the fact that they're not going to be a contender this year. And they've got to look at, okay, Leake, Cueto are going to be gone unless you want to wrap them up to 6 or 7 year deals. And even if they could afford that, I think that's crazy.
It is.
I mean, even for a guy like Leake, who's been pretty durable. I mean, Cueto is really crazy because he's had all kinds of injury issues. But even for a guy like Leake, who's been durable, what's going to happen when he drops 3 miles per hour off his fastball? I mean, he's not going to be able to survive.
Who's that?
Leak.
No, yeah. Well, what happens if Chapman drops 3 miles off his fastball? Then he's like a very good starting pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with Chapman is they just totally mismanaged that from the very beginning. He should never have been the closer. He should have been a starting pitcher. And now you're paying a lot of money for a guy who, especially on a bad team, you look at what the Braves did with Ken Broo. I mean, they're like, okay, well, we're not going to contend this year, so why do we need to be paying money to a closer when he has value because he's got a couple more years on his contract? That's why you deal Chapman now.
I like it, Mike.
I agree.
You're forceful there.
He's sexy, and somebody would pay money for him.
I thought Matt was talking about me.
So what you're saying is Chapman's going to be in the starting lineup next week.
Somebody like the Yankees would love something like that.
Right, there we go. The Yankees are interested in it. We just heard. Coming up this week.
Brian said that.
Right. We can go with it now. The Yankees are interested in it.
He's quiet, but he's crafty.
Yes.
The Marlins are in town for 3. We unfortunately won't get to see your boy, Matt Latos.
I know, I'm sad.
But Friday we got Desclafani against Herron. Saturday we were supposed to get Moscot, but unfortunately he lost an arm. And then Sunday it's Lorenzen against Good Morning Mr. Phelps. But I think that we may be Lorenzen on Saturday. I don't know. I mean, who knows? Nobody knows. And then it's the Pirates, and they're at the Pirates after that.
Who are on fire.
They won 20-25 according to my notes here.
Jeez.
That's crazy.
Unreal.
Yeah, I mean, about a month ago in this show, we were thinking that they were going to fire their manager.
Right.
Now they're in the playoffs, and they're right where they thought they were going to be.
Right.
See, that's what the Reds are going to do.
So
20
it can happen. 20 out of 25.
We got to rip off those 4 wins in a row right there, though. Jeez, before we get to
The problem
Pittsburgh.
is there's no one on the Reds team named Andrew McCutcheon. That's the start of the problem right there.
Starling
2020.
Marte.
We got Todd Frazier.
Yeah, actually, Todd Frazier's outperforming Andrew McCutcheon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one player is not he can't he can only drive the bus.
Take that,
He
Internet.
can't fill it.
They need to start cheating.
Let's hack into the Pirates network.
That'd be it. That's a good idea.
That'll be our project for the week.
All good teams cheat.
Can you imagine the conversation on that one that was going on in the Reds front office? You know, Jocketty, he's probably like, what's going on? What do they do?
Yeah.
Like
The Internet, what's
Computers?
that? You know what happened is the Cardinals probably got some 16-year-old kid to do it who's not liable, who won't do any time. That's what's going to happen because he's underage.
Again, you've got experience in this.
Well,
right?
I'm just saying, those are the whiz kids, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
It's
so
not guys like us.
No, right? I mean,
No.
ones and zeros. It's all ones and zeros. It's all ball bearings these days anyways.
you have to look at it and say, I mean, the hacking that they did was rather unsophisticated. We're just going to get a list of all the passwords that all these people used when they were with the Cardinals, and then we're going to try those passwords to see if we can get it in the Astros network.
But I guarantee
this guy's here's their Pinterest.
I
login.
guarantee
Let's see what that's about.
in 31 clubs, the day after that broke, there was a memo that went out. Make sure you change your passwords.
Yes, absolutely.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have to change
I'm
that.
surprised one didn't go out here. Change your passwords.
That's the code for. That's the combination for my luggage.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It's the exact combination for my luggage.
I'm so gonna steal your Hanes.
Yeah.
The whites.
Whites.
We're done with this edition of the Fifth Mascot, but. And this is the good news. It's available 24/7, 365 on WCPO.com. Not just this episode, but every episode. We're back next Thursday. We're bigger and better than ever. And no one's ever said that on a sports show. Straight ahead, coming up for the rest of this season, or until management tells us otherwise, the Fifth Mascot every Thursday, 11:30, and only on WCPO.com.